Welcome back, Nick Lenz, Comic Corner, Classic / Non-Classic. This is episode number 1184 and Doubleshot number 1078. I got two trades here. Both of them are the finales for trades. The last one's a review for these two. One is DC trade, the other one, of course, is a Marvel one. First up, it is Trinity Volume 4, The Search for Steve Trevor. Collecting issues 17 and 22 of Trinity Volume 2. Written by James Robinson. Yep, the only book I actually forgot. He almost forgot he did this book. So, with this book, that's all it for his most recent stuff. I will get to more of that in a minute. So, yes, these last 6 issues basically are mostly it's just James Robinson doing a love letter to the Warlord series by Mike Grell. Yep, that's simple gist of it. And yes, Warlord himself does show up here. Now, the main villain of the storyline is Domos. So, yeah, Steve Trevor's gone missing, so let's have the Trinity go look for him. And of all places, Circo. Yeah, when they arrive in the place where Warlord is, like, they kind of know where it is, like, oh crap, it's Sikaris. Yes, the place where Warlord himself lives. Basically, Travis Morgan. Yep, here he is. In the very first issue. No Home for You. Yep, that's him. That's the Warlord. Now, the character was created by Mike Grell back in the late 70s. I haven't read the whole series. He's a very interesting character. He's basically kind of like, what if a modern day character went to a fantasy went to a fantasy world that wasn't an isekai? Yeah, this was a world that was basically like underneath. I think it was like not like Antarctica per se, but here's the thing about Warlord. Now, prior to this, the last time physically appears actually back in Convergence of all things. Yes, but throughout the entirety of this continuity, now apparently they kept his appearances canon, despite the fact. Here's the thing: in pre-Flashpoint, this man died. Yes, he died. Now, the interesting thing when it comes to Warlord, there's a recurring joke about this character in the fact that he actually is. Some people thought he was Green Arrow, and the fact he looks like him. Some say he could be his father. Mike Grell himself actually referenced this when Warlord guest starred for a couple issues of his run for Green Arrow. Yeah, the thing with Warlord is, he disappeared back in the 70s. At the time the issues came out, it was basically the late 80s. And this is how he dressed. Yeah, with the sword, off his chest. Yeah, this is how he dressed. And, yeah. So, also apparently Batman's cape has been shredded down to like a minor thing. Though Superman's cape is not going to be a bit torn, at least his cape is still fully intact. So, they are pretty much fighting Domos, well, his forces. And, of course, meeting Jennifer Morgan, Warlord's smoking hot daughter. Yes. And if you're curious, though, did she dress like this in some issues I read for Warlord? Yes. Yes, she did. And if you think, okay, how could this woman be his daughter despite how old Travis Morgan is? Well, the thing with Jennifer Morgan is, she's actually his first child he's ever had. Because she's from his first marriage, yeah, because yes, Warlord, what was a divorce day before he married his current wife, who gave birth to his only child they have together, basically a boy, who actually, I don't think he actually appears in the storyline. But Jennifer Morgan appearing here, I'm actually quite happy because she played a pretty big part in the original series. Well, not just because she's basically Warlord's daughter, but also because the fact she's a very powerful sorceress. You can kind of say basically that, well, Warlord was basically DC's version of He-Man before they got He-Man. Now, one point of the story, they actually have the characters, well, age, but don't worry, they're perfectly fine. Yeah, they age because, well, that's what happened with Steve Trevor. So, they think this guy they're talking to is Steve Trevor, but nope, it's not him. It's actually Dormos. Yep. You can kind of say it's like Trinity appearing in issues of the classic Warlord series by Mike Grell. Yeah, that's what it seems like when it comes to this particular book. And of course, they say goodbye, but don't worry, they do return. Now, if you're curious about the group that's with Warlord in this picture here, yeah, this is his cast. Though they don't really say anything aside from, well, Jennifer Morgan. They send him back, of course, everything's all hunky-dory. Turns out, nope, this is not Steve Trevor, of course, who would be debriefing the whole situation, of course, is actually Dormos. Yep, Steve Trevor is actually in the hands of Dormos himself. Yep, so they go rescue him. Yeah, apparently he's wearing some special armor when he gets captured. And apparently Dormos takes time to take off the armor, like turning him some kind of special, like, behemoth beast. And only Deanna Troi can basically stop him. Yeah, and of course fighting other monsters, like a Sphinx. Yes, a frickin' Sphinx. Yeah, a really good storyline, and it seems that in the case of Robinson, he knows what he's doing when it comes to writing Warlord. Even though I don't know if he's ever written Warlord before that I can think of. No. But it's great, though, that he got a chance to write him. Now, if you're curious, now I'm going to show this little picture here. Now, the woman basically in dressed in brown, that's actually Warlord's wife. Yes, that's Warlord's wife. You also can kind of say with Warlord, he's kind of DC's Kazar. If Kazar was not basically a guy who spoke broken English. Yeah, he has some similarities to Kazar. Marrying a smoking hot woman and, of course, having a child together. Though Mike Grell had a twist, basically, he was previously married. And he was also American, not British, like Kazar is. Kazar is British. So, yeah, the end of the story, yeah, we have Steve Trevor fighting Deanna. And, of course, eventually he's freed. Thanks to, well, Deanna getting close to him. And of course, here's Dormos in his full glory. And yes, this is what he looked like in the classic series and issues I've read about him. Yeah, he was the main villain of the original Warlord comic book. Yeah. And they do defeat him. And they get Steve Trevor back. The series wraps up with a nice little bow with this particular, with this storyline. But it's shocking, though, the fact that, like, with the end of this story arc, that's the end of the series. Yes. Unknown why that DC said to end this book after only 22 issues. Also having one annual. Aside from the fact it did have an Aftermath tie-in to what happened with Superman Reborn, the series didn't cross over with anything. It didn't cross over with either the Superman or Batman or even Wonder Woman, crying out loud. It was simply put mostly a self-contained series with one-time heavy guest appearance by the Justice League. Because the whole point of the series is to focus on DC's Trinity. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. That was the whole point of this series, and it lived up to its name. The only thing that was a lot of people do criticize it for is Francis Manapul leaving the book after the first story arc. Though he does come back a little afterwards, after Colin Bunn does a couple issues. But after that, after like the previous story arc, yeah, and after he did like the second story arc of the series, like after he did his second story arc, he left. And then we have Rob Williams take over for a few issues, and then we have James Ramos take over the last issue of the series. My theory is that that's the reason why the series ended, because of the frequent change of creative teams. Despite the fact there was not a really bad issue of the series, it was really damn good. Fun series to read. I do recommend it. Give the book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. Great series. Alright, next up is The Uncanny Inhumans, Volume 1. Time Crash. Yep, this contains issues 0 through 4 of Uncanny Inhumans. Let me explain about... Oh yeah, and this book also contains material from the Free Comic Day, basically like 2 stories. One is a story that teases stuff that would happen in All New Inhumans. The other, of course, happened in this series. Now, the thing with the issue 0, that was released prior to Secret Wars, and then after Secret Wars, Yeah, that first issue 0, that was launched. Yeah, well, it was meant to start. It was mostly a prelude to his first story arc, with the whole thing of basically Black Bolt looking for his son. Yes, and this storyline was also the debut of the Reader. Yeah, this is actually his first appearance in this series. Well, in the Marvel comic continuity. Yeah, this is also the first appearance of Black Bolt's nightclub, the Quiet Room. Despite the fact there's no business there at this point, but yes, this is the first appearance of that too. Reader is a guy who can read like dog tags and has like a dog, all-seeing dog. He's also a teleporter. Yes. Some could say the character Gordon from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is loosely inspired by this character. Aside from the fact about teleporters and blind, he doesn't have, well, Reader's air power, reading material. Yep. And if you're curious though, wait, why is the Human Torch in this book? Well, there's a reason for that. So, after Secret Wars, it was revealed that Human Torch and Medusa were in a relationship, and in the case of Black Bolt and Medusa, despite the fact being married, they're actually separated. Yeah, they're estranged. Though they people think they're divorced, they're really not. And yeah, at the end of the first issue, we actually have Black Bolt confronting Human Torch and Medusa when they're making out, and Human Torch wants to beat the crap out of him for interrupting his makeout session with his smoking hot girlfriend, the Queen of the Inhumans. And, well, Black Bolt decides to calm down. Now, the storyline, what happened with his son? Well, he got handed off to Kang the Conqueror of all people, who used him to try erasing humans from history. And, yeah, it's a time travel story. A lot of people don't like that. I don't mind him at all. They go various time periods, event death of certain humans. And Kang himself is defeated in the storyline. Don't worry, he comes back, no problem. And with Athora back, basically Black Bolt Medusa's son, he's back. He did set up some minor storylines with him later. But yeah, this is pretty much the start of this particular series. Great. A pretty good story arc to start the series off. But the series got canceled over 2 years after this. Get this book roughly a 9 out of 10. It's an okay start for it. Final thoughts on this series? This was actually a really good series. When this series ended a few years ago, I was quite surprised because this is one series I kind of felt that Marvel could have kept going. But nope, they didn't. Also, I forgot to mention, this book is written by Charles Scholl and art by Steve McNiven. Scholl also did the spin-off book from this, All New Inhumans, which that book got canceled after only 11 issues. Yep, presumably low sales, despite the fact the series had a great premise. And basically the plot thread they have for the series wrapped up in the first story. It's probably the reason people thought the series would have ended after they wrapped the first story when it had a guest appearance by Spider-Man. But in the case of this one, now, All Inhumans was basically a lot of the newer Inhumans, plus Gorgon and Crystal going around the world protecting the Inhumans. This series, Uncanny Inhumans, was basically stuff focused in New Atalan, with Medusa as the ruler. And Scholl, during the course of this series, did actually take a break from one of the issues and actually bothered to explore the relationship between Human Torch and Medusa. The thing with this relationship is there was hints of relation back in the 60s. So these two hooking up as a couple makes perfect sense. And Scholl did a great job developing this relationship over the course of the past couple of years. And Krista found out about it. It's like, hey, you stole my boyfriend. I'm like, okay. Despite the fact that, here's the thing. Human Torch got over Crystal years ago. Yeah. Apparently, Crystal still has a thing for Human Torch, despite the fact that at one point, she was in love with the fastest man alive in the Marvel comic universe, Quicksilver. Yeah. Though eventually she did accept the relationship, though Medusa did keep the relationship secret from her own son. Now, the thing with Black Bolt Medusa's son is that, well, the problem with the character is half the time The writers of Marvel Comics forget this character exists. Yes, that is no joke. That is seriously true about this character. Half the time, people forget this guy existed because of what? Because, well, Christmas got a kid. So why mention the fact that the king and queen of Attilan have a freaking son? Which, by the way, they had this storyline where, oh, the genetics council didn't approve of the consummation of this conceiving this child because they didn't think that Black Bolt's genes be good enough. Really? He's the king of Attilan. Who freaking cares? And do you know what Black Bolt did to him? He beat the living crap. I think he murdered the Genetics Council because even he thought that their ruling was complete bullcrap. And them telling him what to do and how to move forward in his relationship with his smoking hot wife, who also happens to be his queen. And here's the thing about Athura, whose code name was Pope. He, of course, at this point in the Marvel Comics universe is, well, at first he was introduced as a baby back in the 80s in a one-shot written by Ann Nocenti. Yes, Ann Nocenti is responsible for creating this character. And this is the only thing she ever contributed to the Inhumans. Charles Soule did more for the Inhumans than any other writer who wrote before and after him. That's one thing positive you can say about Charles Soule's run as writing the Inhuman books, which he did for 4 years. Now, my friend Tivia was not a fan of the Inhumans push. Now, I had pretty much, as of this particular video, reviewed almost everything associated with Charles Soule's run for the Inhumans, all but one miniseries. Attilan Humans Rising. That is the only thing associated with Charles Soule's run for the Inhumans I have not reviewed yet. But aside from that one trade, I also now reviewed the 2 trades of the Royals, the Black Bolt series, which was collecting 2 trades. There's also the Classic Era, the era done by Paul Jenkins from the late 90s, and the 3rd volume, which was a 4-issue miniseries. Yeah, you gotta at least appreciate the fact Soule took the time to create a whole lot of characters over the course of 4 years. Despite the fact that Nicotis, when he did the Inhumans miniseries, killed almost all of them. Yeah, he pretty much in the first issue of that series, he killed all of them, and then oh, they're all fine. Okay. Yeah. Soule's run, in my opinion, for Inhumans was really good, but when it comes to Uncanny Humans, it's a great series that should have lasted longer than it did. I was sad to see the series go a few years ago, but they replaced it with a series by Al Ewing. Royals, which had the royal family go to outer space. And here's the thing about this series. It was it tied into 2 crossovers. Just 2. Civil War 2, because it involved the Humans as well. Of course it did. It also had tie into, and this is not surprising, Inhumans vs. X-Men. Surprisingly, it did not tie into Secret Empire. Nope, it didn't. You're probably thinking, wait, why wouldn't it tie into Secret Empire? It didn't. None of the Human books tied into that crossover. Probably because the writers of the Human books probably thought, though, yeah, the crossover was kind of a bad idea to do. But I'll discuss more about that when I discuss Secret Empire, when I get a chance to get my hands on the trade that collects that crossover. Uncanny Humans, great series. I do recommend it. And that's it for Uncanny Humans. And that's it for this particular video. Now, would I get time to do a video tonight? Maybe, to say the least. Now, there's no new anime coming out today. But tomorrow, expect to see a review for Fire Force tomorrow, okay? See you next video. Bye.